Welcome to the Dream Huge podcast, where we'll talk with real estate investors, entrepreneurs, business leaders, athletes, and more to inspire you with their success stories so you can work hard, never give up, and dream huge. And now, let's start the show.
Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Dream Huge podcast. Man, super excited for this one today. Folks, we love to share success stories from other huge dreamers, folks in the real estate business, entrepreneurs, mover shakers, influencers, and more. And hopefully these stories will help to motivate and inspire you. That's right, you right there, to also dream huge, baby. Let's go. Today, we have our very special guest, Marc Adams. He's with acquisitionsforyou.com, and he's coming to us today from just outside of London, England. So welcome, Marc. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Pete. Thanks for having me on. It's great to meet you and great to be on the show. And don't hold it against me that I'm on this side of the pond today.
Gotcha. We will not. And disclaimer for those viewing that haven't heard, I took a baseball to the face last week. So we are good to go. We're healing quickly, and we have 20/20 vision still, believe it or not. So yeah, thankful and blessed.
That eye looks like it's taken a real beating, man. You got to take some care of that.
Yeah, I can just do the podcast like this too. So
that might help some. That may help some folk. Or you could do the other side for those. You could do it half and half. No, do the other side.
Well, Marc, thank you, man. You're a busy man. I appreciate you taking the time. Tell us a little bit about what you guys do at Acquisitions for the number 4 you spelled out YOU.com.
Yeah. So we're very, very simple in what we do. There's a big issue in the marketplace that we fell into by accident, which is for those of us that are dreaming big and those of us that keep dreaming big, most of us, I hope, will make it. And one of the consequences of making it is that one day you'll want to dream big about something else. Maybe that's because you might want to retire, or maybe that's because you want to go and do something else. And you've got a business that you dreamed big about and is now worth a lot of money and you're going to sell it. And you know what? There was a report that came out yesterday from the CEPA Institute. They help a lot of people with exit planning. And in that report, it said that 98% of owners of businesses, sub 75 million or revenue, that's my flavor on that. This is smaller companies that start to think about maybe selling a business, haven't done any prep. And so why would you damn well care? Well, the reason that you'd care is because the lack of that prep, as in preparation, is going to cause you to lose 30 to 50% typically of the sticker price in the business if you sell it. And now it does change. The Gen Zs is only 48% because they tend to think more about multiple exits and they start with the end in mind. So somebody's been getting to them on YouTube, I'm sure. But the baby boomers and sliding on down, they're most exposed. And so at Acquisitions for You, we do a lot to try and help them double the value of their business in 12 months or less at no cost to them, and exit their business with the minimum amount of professional fees payable possible. So what do I mean by that? If you're going to lose up to 50% of the sticker price of the business to professional fees, the professional fees also include tax. So you won't, and although you can in some scenarios get your tax down to zero, overall, when you put it in the pot with other fees that you've got to pay, maybe professional advisors like a broker, legal attorneys or CPAs, you mix that pot together, you're not going to get it down to zero for all of it. So the double and keep it blueprint is designed to help owners keep more of what's theirs because they worked their butts off most of their lives to build it. They dreamed big, they served well, they got there, and the system is absolutely freaking shafting them when it comes time to sell. Excuse my language, listeners. So there's two parts to it. So if we give you one of our clients right now, California business, they're worth 10 million. They're going to end up with 5 if they do nothing. we're working with them to double the value of that business to 20 in less than a year. We've already figured out how we're going to do that. It doesn't need them to spend any money on more salespeople, marketing people, operations or procedures or this or that or the other. It just needs structuring in a slightly different way. And there's a few things we can do from the outside that they cannot do. But in addition to that, we're preparing them and organizing their business in a way that their tax bill will come down significantly. So if they did nothing and went from 10, they'd end up with 5.5. So a big proponent of that would be professional fees and helping them getting the business sold. That could be up to 10%. So we can massage that right down. And then the other 35, 40% would be taxes, and we can get that right down. But here's the thing that I want everybody to get. I speak to too many business owners that say, yeah, we're getting ready to think about this. We're going to do it in 3 years or maybe 2 years or 1 to 5 years. You need to start planning and organizing your business, LLC, S Corp, C Corp, doesn't matter what it is, right now. Because you got to structure that savings bit with I've got to be careful the way I phrase this in case any of your listeners work for the IRS or His Majesty's government in the UK, like the tax people, right? You've got to do this in the right way, and you've got to set it up for the right reasons and organize and structure your business in the right way, which means it's got to be set up. That's 3 to 4 months, 3 to 5 months to be done. And then you've got to season and sprinkle that deal and that setup and structure for another 6-9 months, so that when you do come to sell it, nobody asks any questions because it's part of business as usual. Because if the authorities ever get wind of you or think that you just organized it that way because it was going to be cheaper and you were going to avoid the taxes, which is legal, evasion is not, but avoiding is, then they'll just look through it and say, no, you can't do that. So this takes 9 to 18 months to do, sometimes a bit longer, but you do one first. And I want everybody to know that if you're dreaming big, when you get to a business that's worth 5 million or 10 million or even worth 2 million, if you want to keep half of it or up to half of it, you want to keep 30% more of it, then you need to start planning this and thinking about how you're going to do it. You'll get some of this in my book, Secrets to 10Xing Your Business and Cashing Out Tax-Free. I'll make a link available to you, Pete, for a PDF version of that, or people can find it on Amazon if they want. We make no money off the book. It goes to charity. But then the other half of that is, well, if I could double it in a year and then sell it, or maybe sometimes we fail and we don't double it. We only get it to, if it's worth 10, we only get it to 17. So what? That's still so much more money than people have ever dreamed about. And this happens because you've got owners out there that are brilliant at the thing they do. They serve the community. They look after their employees. They care about the name above the door, and they're brilliant at that thing. But everybody else is circling around that business like bloody sharks, waiting for them to make a move. And the regulations and the opportunities, that's not stuff that most owners know anything about. Even in big companies, one of my bigger clients is 200 million in revenue. They don't have a clue. And if they go down the path of selling that business on 1 times, there's 80 million they're going to lose. So we're working with them to help them keep up to 60 million more. They'll still spend some money, but there's a lot more that goes in their bank. That's where it should be. So that's what Acquisitions for You does. And
Love it.
we've got a bit of backing. We're lucky to have a couple of family offices behind us with 22 billion of funding to support us. Because guess what? Family offices and PE and corporations, they like buying good businesses. But a lot of the time when they're looking at a business that's overpriced, they walk by. So if you can structure this in the right way, it makes it more appealing for them. And if you can double the value of it as well, it makes it even more appealing for them. They don't mind the size of the check. They care about the value. So we do a lot of that. It's kind of been a journey towards it, Pete, because, if I took you back with me to 2020, I was one of those nasty tosspot private equity corporate people that was looking to buy low, build it up over 7 years, sell it high, return to investors. Unfortunately, at that time for me, as we were coming out of that first lockdown pandemic, remember that when we were all looking at league tables of how many people had got infected and died all over the world? I was looking at that. My family were looking at that. We're all locked down together in the house, including my 10-year-old. And we come out of that first lockdown, and I was overdue a medical. And I went for that medical, got some tests, and the net of that was, Mark, we're sorry to tell you that you've got stage 4, and you've only got 6 months, which was kind of a way of saying, get yourself sorted out because you're not going to survive this. And we're in the pandemic, and we just got into those groups of 4 or 6, right? So luckily for me, the private hospitals in the UK didn't have any obligation to care for any COVID patients, so they weren't overrun. And because I had insurance, that's where I was going to go. There was just one hospital in London that could look after me, the same hospital that looks after the royal family, I might say. So I went in there in Jan 21 to take this out, not knowing if I'd get any more time. But you'd fight tooth and nail to get a day, Pete, if that's if you're faced with that reality. And while I was there, I got the original strain of COVID, just pre-vaccine. So the vaccines were coming, but none of us quite had them. They were beginning to get into the at-risk, the hospitals, the doctors, the nurses, the surgeons. They were beginning to get them, but the general public, people like me, we weren't getting them at that time. So I'm recovering from that and cancer back at home, and I'm in isolation. And it was at that moment, that my 10-year-old Tommy, he would come in and see his dad at the door because he was in isolation as well. Like he couldn't come closer. Every morning, lunchtime, afternoon, high tea, which we do in the UK, of course, and evening and bedtime. And we talk about Xbox, for like a week. I don't know about you, but I'm not that great with the Xbox, and I'm starting to run dry. And he came in on a Thursday or a Friday, and I was just off the phone to one of my LA-based clients. And he said, "Oh, who was that?" So we started talking about it, and then we just led into a bit of business. And I don't know why I let it slip, but I said, we together have been looking at a business that we wanted to buy, but we could do nothing with it because everything's in lockdown. And he said, well, so we started talking more about that. And I said, 9 out of 10 companies never get sold, Tommy. And he said, why? I said, because this issue, 98% of owners don't realize how much they're going to lose. And therefore they double the price, thinking that that's what they'll have to do to get what they need, not realizing that doubling the price isn't going to be, somebody's going to look at it and say, it's too much money, I'm not going to pay that much for it. And so I said, 9 out of 10 don't sell. And he said, so what happens to them? I didn't explain that piece that I just explained for you and the listeners. So what happens to them? I said, well, they never sell, and the owners end up working in those businesses in their 70s and 80s sometimes. And he said, so what happens if those people, those owners, get COVID and die? Who's going to look after their families, Dad? Who's going to look after them? And I had no answer. And that was, and so the thing about a 10-year-old is, well, I don't know about you, but, my son is a son that never forgets. It reminds me of that Cuba Gooding Jr. movie where he was a US Navy diver, and his son never forgot, and it drove him on. And in a strange way, Tommy drove me on because he would come. So my first order of business was to get through, and I'm lucky to be able to say I'm 5 years almost down the line. I'm clear I survived. I got past the COVID and the cancer. Actually, they think COVID cured the cancer, Pete, because I went back 3 months later, and they said, do you want the good news or the bad news? Bad news. I said, well, let's take the good news. And they said, well, we can't find any evidence of the cancer at all. So my immediate question was, are you sure I had it? And they went, oh, yeah, you had it. And I said, so here's the pathology report, because they knew that was coming. I said, well, why? Why do you think? They said, that's the bad news. I said, why is that bad news? They said, well, we have no idea why. I said, well, that's not bad news for me. Might be for you, but I'll take it. I said, but you've got to have some idea. Give me a guess. And they said, well, and around that time, April 21, you were beginning to see, or you were seeing in the medical journals coming out around the world, not the kind of thing that you and I would see, about a dozen cases of people like me who had late-stage terminal cancer that got COVID and didn't have cancer anymore, and nobody knows why. And they're linking it. I immediately switched and thought, shit, we got the cure. How do we bottle it and sell it? We're going to be gazillionaires. And they went, no, it's not like that, because they didn't think it was COVID. What they think COVID did was force the immune system into overdrive. And I was in great nick when I went in. I do a lot of exercise and vitamins and minerals and things like that. They think all of that helped my immune system when it was kicked into overdrive by COVID to help me not get over COVID. But the immune system doesn't go, I'll deal with a cold and I'll leave COVID and I'll deal with this. It just blitzes. And they think that it really helped me and is what led to me getting rid of that, because the immune system turns out to be very, very good at getting rid of many forms of secondary cancers. Now, I got no medical evidence to support any of this, I've got to say. I'm not exactly willing, Pete, to go back and say, give me the original strain and stick the cancer back in, let's have another go, for obvious reasons. But I'm here and I'm blessed and I'm lucky and I'm grateful to have this conversation with you today. But my son then kept reminding me, what was I doing? What was I doing? Because I'd made a commitment that I'd look at it. But that led me to the book. So I wrote the book, took a couple of years, called Secrets to 10Xing Your Business. And that was my first attempt to get the message out. A podcaster picked it up and said, come on the show. That led to lots of podcasting picking it up, so much that I try and speak on as many podcasts as I can to share the message now. Because it turns out the answer was hiding in plain sight. You've just got to disrupt and look at things in a different way, so that it's not that the tax man in the UK or the US or any other country wants to take your money. They don't. But if you don't organise yourself in a way to keep it, then they're going to. So what I've done is put through the book and the podcasting and stories like this, planted seeds, and I've developed a whole bunch of other stuff that people can grab hold of to help them on their journey. And we do work with clients, but we're quite limited. We work with 10, 11 clients. We've got 22 people in the business now that do this. There was nothing when I started it, but we're helping a lot of people that we can. And so, the 10 million to 20 million exiting at 17 million story I told you at the top of the hour, that's real. The 0 to 950 million in 18 months, that's real. 140 million to over $1 billion in value, not exited yet, that's real. And it's all because it's about making it and protecting it. Nobody thinks about protecting it till it's too late. Don't get me wrong. Every one of us has got a financial planner that will help you invest your tax paid proceeds into a property or other investments. But how do you extract from the business paying much less tax so you've got more to invest into your next project or retirement? That's the thing that I'm working on that everybody overlooks. And CPAs don't talk to you about this because they don't know. And financial planners and advisors often don't talk to you about this because they're focused on protecting your post-tax wealth. They don't know either. In fact, one of my clients that we've just recently won is a 200 million revenue business, and we're going to take them through an exit. We're going to triple the value of their business before we sell it in 12 months or less, and mitigate, reduce a lot of the tax liability. And the reason we can do that is because their advisor heard about, I was on a podcast and they picked it up. They got a copy of the book and were just interested. Turns out they also knew somebody that knew me and said, what do you think of this idiot? And they went, this idiot's actually good. And so they said, set me up. So I said, look, what can I do to help you? They went back to try and tell the client and very quickly got into a point where the client said, you don't know this area very well, do you? And they went, no. They said, who does? And they said, well, let me introduce you. So we went in together and had a conversation. Now we're helping them move forward. No brainer. But the problem is not many people know, Pete. So they end up giving away up to 50%. And the reason it's 30 to 50% is because I'm global and it changes. So in America, New York, California, it could be 50%. Texas, it might only be 30% because there's state and federal and there's no state tax. And it isn't all about tax. It's about other fees that you get charged as well. And we've got a plan that helps you mitigate all of that stuff. So it's just that people don't know. And I was appalled and amazed, and I couldn't believe it. When I saw this report hit my desk yesterday of 98% of people not being aware or planned, I was astounded, yet I wasn't astounded. I just didn't realize the number was still that big. And so we do that. So that's a really long-winded answer to what we do.
Well, that percent is good for your business because you're going to continue to help business owners and forever and beyond, because business owners are not well set up for this. And
yeah.
What comes to mind was a recent story I had. A business owner, friend of mine, was looking at an exit, and they said the best advice they got through the whole deal was, run your business like you're selling it. run, because I think that, people, and you mentioned the boomers and whatnot. I mean, I don't know if this is generation specific, but probably not. But I would say, business owners will oftentimes have two sets of books. These are the real books, okay? And these are what we turn into the IRS. Well, if you're looking to sell your business, you should run everything by the book anyways. And they told me that that was the best advice they ever got. And not only is it not worth it not doing things the right way, it's not worth it when you're setting yourself up for a sale at some point.
Yeah, so here's what I think might also, in addition to what you said, be underneath there. Many people listening to the show that run a business will know that maybe they know somebody, because it will never be them, but they'll know somebody that maybe went down to Florida on a business trip and took the family, and they know somebody that put that through the business and it was 50 grand. Let's just break that down. Now, when you're running the business as a lifestyle, that's going through the book and you're justifying it. But that 50,000, if that was profit, the amount that would be worth will depend on the size and the profitability of the business. But let's imagine that that's got a 5x multiple on it. So every 50 grand that you spend that you didn't need to spend is $250,000 potentially or more that you lose in the value when you sell. So when you go and run it through the book, those same people that we know, but never us, that went to Florida on that business trip, will go on their own and spend $2,000 when they're thinking about it's this sort of stuff you tidy up. Now, a lot of that gets caught because they'll do these things called add backs, and some of those will be applicable, some of those won't. I'm not a broker, by the way, so I don't deal with money or give financial advice, but this is common sense. And so you've got that, but there's some key things around running your business like by the book. You should do that anyway, because it will bite you in the arse when due diligence is done and somebody looks at it, and that can get in the way of selling the business. It's always good practice, but the last thing you want is the IRS climbing all over you, because they're aggressive and they're not very pleasant. And so those good corporate citizens and good stewardship would run the business properly anyway. However, what catches you, because most of us are running the business properly, and every now and again, somebody will go through, but it's small. The 50 grand business trip to Florida, I paint as an example, not knowing anybody that's done it to that level. 5 grand, yes, right? And Disney's expensive these days, so maybe it's 10. But anyway, when you're going through, it's the way that you structure. So, for example, S corps. A lot of people think, well, because they're running an S corp, if they were selling the business, it's zero tax on the business, and it all passes through to the individual, which it does. But there's a load of ways of organising that and mitigating it. I tell you what I've got for you, Pete. I didn't think of this. I've developed a bunch of software, and the net there of this software is free. We don't sell it. We just use it internally. And that software basically means that any person that owns a business will have a business that's registered somewhere for its tax, for its tax liabilities as a company. They will also be paying their tax somewhere. So it used to be that you'd go to these expensive corporate tax advisors who would charge you an arm and a leg to find out your tax position. Well, you can do all that free in a AI based, not completely, but with my persona, what I know, and an AI based thing that I've developed that allows you to take any business in any country, in any jurisdiction, with any business owners in any country, in any jurisdiction, and figure out what their tax position would be if they sold the business today and they did nothing. And then it will say, now, if you think about it won't tell you what things to do, because you've got to have a conversation to find out what fits for you, but it will outline the possibilities, which is why I can instantly know in 3 minutes, getting you to answer maybe 12 questions, that you're a business in California doing 10 million, making 1.3 in profit, that's worth 10 million, making 1.3 to 1.5 in profit in a niche that gets a slightly bigger multiple. And if you do nothing, your 10 million will become 6. I know that because of the questions that you answer for me and the report it generates for me, which I always have to look at, because it's, the way that AI helps, and AI is driving some of this, but not all of it. It's good, but it's not good enough yet. So then I'll look at it and say, okay, well, what things kind of make sense? But I can also look at it and say, in this kind of business, is it possible that we could double the value of that in 12 months or less or thereabouts? It could be 15 months, and then sell it to the right buyer. So one of the things you've got to worry about when you're selling a business is you don't want any Tom, Dick, or Harry, especially Harry, given the way he's been treating the royal family, buying your business. Because you want to make sure that they're going to protect the name of the book above the door. They're going to protect the people in the business and everything else. So a lot of corporate vetting is really important to owners, but actually a lot of corporates care about that too. Not a lot of people know that. Private equity, less so. Family offices really care about that. And they're doing a lot more direct investment now. Private credit really cares about that too, because they don't want to see their money frittered away or an investment lost because they didn't take care of the people or protect the name. So you've got all these things to factor in that we also are able to look at in the way that you answer questions for us. It's 3 minutes and 12 or 14 questions maybe. And that'll give you a direction of travel where you can go off and do this thing. You can go do it yourself. But the detail on how you do that, that's a long report. We don't include that because the first stage of it is the juice worth the squeeze? If you're running a business that's only doing 100 grand, there isn't a lot to save. You're not making much profit out of that because you're drawing it all out to live on, right? So you've got to get it to the point where it's making money first. And we've got a bunch of marketing accelerator campaigns and AI things that we make available to clients for free that they can implement themselves. And we've also got some really strong relationships with key marketing agencies that will come in for free and work with you if you're a business that's winning some business and not making money on others because you lose clients or they just don't make a decision. They'll work with all of that kind of stuff and not charge you up front, but take a rev share on what they convert at the back end. There's a bunch of things that we can do to help people improve their value without it costing them any money. But the big thing of doubling the value of the business is something we're experts in that we do outside of the company. So there's reasons for that. You don't want people to know you're selling until you're ready because your employees get frightened to go looking for jobs. And they don't need to do that because there's no guarantee you're going to sell. A lot of people change their minds, would you believe? We've had lots of companies go right to the wire and go, you know what, we don't want to do this anymore. So I've got a plan for them a lot of the time. And I was having lunch with one on Saturday he's a specialist cleaning business. And we helped get them a really good offer on their business 4 years ago and they sold out. Guess what happens? They get bored, Pete. They get bored. Now he wants to come back and help other people do the same. Say, great, come and work with me because we've got loads of clients that need that expertise and help that will pay a modest monthly and give a percentage of equity for a successful outcome. So there's loads of things to do, but it starts off with 98% of people really get head over the coals and lose up to 50% when they try and sell, and then they can't afford to sell. And the whole reason I started to pivot away from private equity towards this was because my son made me think about it and reminded me that I hadn't found a solution. And so the book was first, and then really getting into thinking about it, the answer was hiding in plain sight. I just do what private equity does, but I partner with owners to do it without buying the business from them so that they can get so much more for their life's work. We get paid well on that too for the companies that we work with. We can't work with everybody, but we got, and they're making so much more, they're happy to work with us as well. So, but for this message, for these people that listen to your show, if they want to get a view on what their business might be worth and what their professional leakages could be, I'll send you a link that they can go on and fill in, and then I'll take a look at that and give them back a free report. I'll even give them 20 minutes of my time on particular days. I'm very boxed in on time that I've got available, but I'll make some time available for people that want to talk about it in case it helps them. Because I'm on a mission to put every dollar I can back into owners' bank accounts all around the world. And I'm doing that by completely revamping, reanalyzing, and disrupting the way that businesses are valued and bought and sold around the world, because this is not a US problem. This is not a UK problem. This is happening everywhere. And at the moment, we're serving the US and the Canadian and the British market, but we've had inquiries. I've got, in our 22 people, we've got 2 Canadians, a German, 2 Brits, and everyone else is in America. And we've got other people that want to get involved and help us with this and become part of that Acquisitions for You community all over the place. But, we're a small business and we're scaling slowly. But my prime goal is to help people with free stuff that they can implement themselves. Some of those people will want our help and expertise and finance to help them go faster. That's okay. We can talk about that if we have availability. Currently, we're on a wait list. But the goal of this is don't give up 50% of your life's work. Take planning. Get organized. Hit me up. Watch my horrible videos. I stopped doing YouTube shorts because I thought that people wouldn't be interested in listening to what I have to say. But turns out they are. And TikTok goes, I did a video yesterday, I got over 1,000 views. And so, I am not J.K. Rowling. I am not Alex Hormozy. But in my own small way, I'm trying to help as many people as I can. And I'm grateful to you for us being on the, chatting here today on the show.
Yep. Helping people. That's what we do. Marc Adams, acquisitionsforyou.com. Marc Adams, acquisitionsforyou.com. Check them out. Saving business owners crazy amounts of money when it comes time to sell that business. Thank you for joining us, Marc.
I'm making it. So saving them a bunch and doubling at least the value of that business where we can as well.
And doubling the value. Wow, incredible. Yeah. Thank you for your time today. Yeah,
Thank you, Pete.
Share the link, and I will post that on the pod as well. And yeah, man, that's it. Just keep helping people out. Thank you, Marc. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching the Dream Huge podcast. And as always, remember the rules. Work hard, never give up, and dream huge. Let's see the guns, Marc. Happy you're healthy man. And back at it, man. Can't stop us.
I've got to be dreaming more, man. I've got to be dreaming more.
Thank you, Marc. Appreciate you, buddy.
You too, man.
Thank you for listening to the Dream Huge podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. For more inspiring content, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Dream Huge Realty and on TikTok at Dream Huge Inc. Until next time.